gonna take a step back and kind of get to the big picture, because I think that's probably where I guess get most of my juice from, and that's kind of where I excel at. So what I'm gonna talk to you guys about is an internal inventory of assets. That's kind of how I've excelled at what I'm doing. So I'll step back to like the beginning, the story of the individual, because it always starts with the individual, and the individual gets into that type of work. So I'll start with myself. I was born in Trinidad and Tobago, and then at 4 years old, I moved to Brooklyn, New York. Unfortunately for me, my parents and myself separated at 4 years old, and I then migrated to Toronto, Ontario, Canada at 9 years old without a family, just one sibling. And I came up in Toronto. And the reason why I'm telling you guys this part of the story is because for me, growing up, foster care, adoption, children's aid, blah, 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 I was lucky. And I'm very fortunate. And again, it replicates itself in the work I do. I was very fortunate because I always kind of did an internal inventory of assets. I always asked myself, how do I get away with something? How can I do the minimal amount of work and get the maximum effort? For a kid who's in the foster care system, it's got to be like really important to you, because you're not always going to want to do the work. And I mean, with the individual skill set you're developing from not having parents and having shortcomings in certain areas, you're not always going to want to do the work. So you got to find a way to manipulate the system. And I stumbled upon the 80-20 principle. And this blew my mind. You mean to tell me that I get 80% of my result from 20% of my work? And it's pretty much a rule across the board. So at that point in my life, I really dug into success literature. Marcus Aurelius, anybody who wrote about success. Caveat to the story. When I emigrated to Canada at 9 years old, I came in the trunk of a car over Niagara Falls. I was an illegal immigrant. I was not allowed to go to school in Canada. I never got my permanent residence until I was 21 years old. So I went to high school illegally, and I went to college illegally, by hook or by crook. So for me, the lesson was always, how do you get it done without the resources that everyone else has? And that's kind of been an underlying story that's kind of helped me throughout. Some of you may not know what I do. Fortunately for me, I have my own television show on NBATV Canada covering basketball in all of its forms. I also cover the Toronto Raptors on a day-to-day basis with TSN, Sportsnet, and all the other networks. And I'm a contributor to TSN, and I'm also a sponsored non-athlete by Nike. That's weird. I don't play sports, but I'm sponsored by Nike. It was also a dream of mine as a kid. So I had all these markers and things that I wanted to accomplish, and I had to realize how to get them done without really working that hard. The judge came up here and he said he woke up at 5 a.m. My friends tell me they wake up at 9 a.m. I'm like, man, they still do that? Like 9 a.m. exists? Okay, and I don't want to get anyone upset, because I know people are like, oh, this guy's an idiot. He doesn't even work hard. But I mean, for me, I think it's something that was always important to me, to find a way to maximize opportunity. So I think for me, the reason why I want to say internal inventory of assets or skills or whatever you want to call it is because I learned at a very young age I can talk. I talk a lot. I did not talk very well in the beginning, but because I knew I liked to talk a lot, I used my talking as an asset. I recognized internally that I talk. Like, for better or for worse, I'm going to open my mouth at some point during the night, and I might as well use it to my advantage. When I came to Canada, I lived by a high school called Eastern Commerce. Eastern Commerce is the #1 basketball program in Canada. I don't care what anyone tells you, okay? And I was very fortunate to become very close with the program. So basketball was something that was very, very important to my life after 9 years old. I grew up soccer and cricket, but after 9, it was basketball. So for me, I kind of had these two things, talking and basketball. And I discovered at a very, very early age that both of them lent themselves to my own success. Like, I could leverage these two things. I had a great, let's look at it. Let's step back for a second. When I go home, I watch basketball. When I go on the internet, I read basketball articles. When I go hang out with my friends, we're talking basketball, we're playing basketball. I played on my high school basketball team. I played on the rec basketball team for my neighborhood. I watch all-star games. It was all basketball. Like, it was basketball for me. And I realized, what gets me up at 6 in the morning? And I was just, we had this talk just now, me and Veronica. And I think for me, I realized very young, there's ways to cheat life. Like, okay, you could pick a career. But we were just talking about on a cold February morning when, the weather is chilly, it's dark, it's 5 a.m., what is going to get you out of your bed, right? Not the thing that you're going to have to white knuckle, the thing you have to get up and, reluctantly pull the sheets off and, slowly enter the shower. But what's the thing that's going to have you like, gotta go to work? What's that thing? And so for me, very early in my life, I realized if I can structure my life around the things that I'm naturally going to do anyways, whether you pay me or not, trust me, I'm going to be watching that Raptors game whether the Raptors are paying me or not. So I figured a way to structure my life around the things I was naturally going to do. And I think one thing, the education, look, let's face it, the internet is the most powerful thing that's ever been invented. And I'm from that middle generation. The generation didn't grow up with the internet in their house, right? I didn't have the internet in my house at 16. I was like American Online. I'm 32, by the way, so I'm not part of that generation that came up with the internet. But the internet is the great equalizer. In that, if you have a natural interest, something that you're inclined to, you can become an expert in that subject or in that area of life without necessarily being associated with a corporation or with an already established entity, which is how you had to get things done prior, 80s, 90s, and so on, way back. So for me, I found an opportunity to do the thing that naturally spoke to me, and I used that. I said, okay, basketball is going to be the thing, so it's all basketball from here in. I'm going to develop a way to do a basketball show. I'll be a basketball journalist, but it was always basketball. From a young age, I was the fastest guy. I jumped the highest. Lateral quick's crazy. But I couldn't play basketball really well. My jump shot was broken. I had no left hand. So, basketball at the professional level wasn't going to be it for me. And I think that's where the kind of education system hasn't made the proper transition at this point in human history. I think the education system stems from a very old mentality where corporations controlled the workforce and you needed to work for an entity larger than yourself in order to make a living. I make more money not from my day job. I make more money doing stuff for Nike, hosting live events, and just having people bring me in to consult on basketball projects. Now, I never played in the NBA. I never did. Like, I never played NCAA basketball. I got cut from my high school basketball team the senior year, I'm pretty sure. Actually, no, I did, yeah. So you got to understand, for me to be in a position where I'm one of the foremost authorities of basketball in Canada is pretty messed up. I still can't make a 20-foot jump shot consistently. But I think what I did was I identified that it was important to me, and I utilized my natural talents to enter this world. And I think that's where the education system fails these kids. A lot of kids want to be basketball players, and it's not necessarily because they want to be basketball players, because they want to be in the gym. They want to be, helping people, teaching people, that kind of camaraderie. Just the environment works for them. And I believe that some kids just realize, it's either playing or bust. But there's a million other avenues. I mean, there's so much crossover. In this modern age, there are so many jobs that didn't exist 10 years ago that exist today. And the jobs that didn't exist 10 years ago that exist today are some high-paying ones. You know what I'm saying? There's so much crossover. If you have a specialization in law and you have a passion for something else, I'm seeing so many examples, because I'm a huge Malcolm Gladwell fan, of crossover. And he talks about that in Outliers and a lot of his other books about crossover, taking one area that maybe you're professionally trained and another area that you personally trained yourself that you're naturally inclined to. And I think that's where my whole idea of cheating the system came from, is when I first witnessed that 80-20 rule, I realized I don't have to work that hard. Now, there's some people, there's some professions where you have to work hard. And I'm not going to be up here saying, you can become a lawyer with the 80-20 rule or something like that. You can't, But I think what you realize, though, is when you're trying to become a lawyer or a doctor, is that internal yes already existed for that trade. You naturally had healing hands. You naturally got that juice, that extra serotonin or melanin or whatever it is from watching someone get better. And that's the key. I think as much as my utilizing my laziness in the 80-20 rule, I think a lot of it is happenstance, karma, good luck. I'm a talker. And I identified that early. And I allowed that to blossom. I fed that fire, and it became part of who I am. And I allowed myself to utilize that skill set to create a path and a career. And I think that's why I said an internal inventory of your assets. One of the most important things a young professional, an old professional, a young child can do is learn what his or her strengths are, what areas he or she is comfortable in, where they need to work, where they need to grow. And I think, but even more important than that is, where do they already feel awesome? Expand on the awesomeness. I know it sounds cliche, whatever, but the older I get, the more I realize cliches are really, really true. It's so true and sad because as a young person, like, oh yeah, sure. It's so true because I realized it was only because I was naturally inclined to do this that I'm successful. Like, I'll tell you guys this right now. Today's a big day for me. Not only am I here at Tuni Talks, 18 years ago, a show Off the Record came on the air with Michael Landsberg. My television show, The Hangout, is literally a spin-off of Off the Record, but more basketball specific. Today was my very first appearance on Off the Record with Michael Landsberg, and I killed it. I'm not telling you I killed it because I feel like I killed it. I'm telling you I killed it because the people on set told me I killed it. But it's to show you that I had that vision stem from watching other people do what they excel. Michael Landsberg is a G. He's an expert. I could never replace him. But he has the same thing as I have. He recognized his internal assets. He recognized what his natural inborn talents were. I think a lot of times people talk, and the young man over there had a great comment, and I read very similar articles about willpower diminishing throughout the day. Absolutely. Willpower does diminish throughout the day. That's why at the end of the night, I end up on my couch looking at myself like, oh, is this who I am? Did I just eat that whole bag of jalapeno Cheetos? Like, why? I was jogging this morning. But it's for real. It's really real. And I think I've never been the guy with the ability to white knuckle through my lack of willpower. So I've always found this cheat where I just do the things I'm geeked about. Honestly, I do the things I'm geeked about. And it may not be a model that you can transfer to everybody and everywhere, but I do know that the inventory of internal assets will allow you to find what your true north is. You know, and I think if you can find what your true north is, you think about it archetypally. Go back to the earliest days of human civilization. There are archetypal roles. I know I was the guy running over the hill to look and say, oh, the enemy's coming. And then I run back because I'm small and I'm fast and compact, you feel me? And then I run back and be like, guys, the enemy's coming, right? That's the journalist of yesteryear, right? There's the guy that would massage. Those are the healing hands of yesteryear. And I think if you can get back to the archetypal models of who you are and realize the things that are giving you juice, the things that naturally speak to your yes, that, your eyes get wide and you're like, oh, I got to do that. Like, for me personally, that's the only way to go about it, is to just have that juice naturally, because, willpower is cool, but like the young man said, it'll run out eventually. So yeah, that is all I got, man. Really, I don't work that hard, so I can't have that much to contribute.